the Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Today's sponsor is Audible.com. They're a leading provider of spoken audio information and entertainment. Listen to their audiobooks whenever and wherever you want. You know, I do a lot of driving. I'm always listening to an audiobook, and I love it. I couldn't live without Audible. If interested, go to audiblepodcast.com/Lutz. audiblepodcast.com/Lutz. You are listening to the FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. I'm Kerry Lutz on 1590 WPSL. Did you know that May 1st is Physical Silver Counterattack? And Andy Hoffman is helping lead the charge. There's a YouTube video gotten over 165,000 hits. You want to be watching the silver markets come May 1st. Andy, welcome back.
Well, it's always a pleasure, Kerry.
Yeah, so what about this physical silver counterattack? Is it going to work?
Well, look, it's more symbolic than anything else because, you know, there's only 1 or 2% of the people in the world that are in the physical metals realm that believe and understand real money. You know, a lot of them already have significant percentages of their net worth in physical metals. And I think a lot of them will symbolically buy some more, even though it's, as you said, it's very, very scarce right now. It's very hard to find product. But you never know. I mean, you know, the movement, I look at the video, Sound Money campaign, has 165,000 hits in just a couple of days, and there'll be a second video that's coming out in a few hours. And look, there's a lot of people around the world who are angry, and a lot of people who were woken up by last week's alternative currencies destruction. And now you're seeing some just incredible data about depletion of inventories in the COMEX, particularly J.P. Morgan. And you know, who knows? With scarce supply, it could very well have a big effect.
Now, I'm looking at what you wrote here about the spreads on the premiums on junk 90% silver. For those of you not in the know, pre-1965 silver dimes, quarters, and halves. And it went from April 9th being $3 the ounce, which still was high of recent memory, up to April 16th between 6 to 7, which means that on $1,000 face value of a bag of junk silver, you're going to pay around $4,500 to $5,000 premium on one bag.
Yeah, the reason they always called it junk silver, it's obviously a misnomer, but they called it that because it typically never had a premium. Even very recently, it would trade around spot value. And now, to this day, I mean, you're talking about over the last 2 weeks, it's trading at about, you know, spot plus $5 to $6 or even $7 an ounce. And that's junk silver, which, you know, I call it the ultimate fear product because people buy it when they worry that the system could come down and you might need it to barter. But obviously, it's not the most desired product, which is silver eagles, which are trading at even higher premiums. I'd say closer to $7 to $8 an ounce. And they're, you know, we're talking about 6+ week delivery delays right now. Actually, it's closer to 8 weeks from the way I see it here at Miles Franklin. So there is an extreme shortage that was created by this, call it suicidal, call it stupid, or call it planned hit. And, you know, right now we're seeing, you know, the end game of this manipulation is when the paper and physical markets break apart, which is what you're seeing right now. In fact, it's not just now. This all started back in 2008. We saw the first major break, and since 2008 we've had, I have a chart, you know, 4, 5, 6 different times where we've had silver shortages and premium spikes. So, you know, this is what happens when you try to hold down something with very little supply.
Yeah, and we've seen it in the war nickels, which are my favorite because they had the best discount. Now they're trading 50 cents a coin premium. It's insane. And law of unintended consequences, like we discussed last week, underway. And when there is no supply of something, your colleague Bill Halter mentioned, how do you come up with a price for something that doesn't exist?
And that's the whole beauty of the paper versus physical argument. I mean, I had someone this weekend come up to me and said, "Oh, I heard, silver got smashed. It probably made you upset and everything." I said, "No, you don't understand. The real price of silver is no different than it was a few weeks ago. In fact, I'd argue it's higher. I mean, we're talking about junk, even certainly Silver Eagles, Maples. A lot of these 1 ounce rounds are just completely sold out. And, I would say that the price today of silver is about $31 an ounce, roughly. And when it was $26 a few weeks ago, the premiums were lower. So I'd argue the price is higher than it was before they smashed the paper price by $5 an ounce. And again, people really need to understand the difference between what I call the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail of the financial world is that only gold and silver are real money, and everything else is just investments. And when you understand that the investments, the paper PM investments like mining shares and ETFs and closed-end funds all fell, but the real stuff did not.
Yeah, remarkable. And you know what? I'm believing that people are starting to wake up. I think more people get it. You're probably seeing it in number of newsletter subscriptions. I'm seeing it in downloads. Huge numbers, just up and away.
Well, this is our best month at Miles Franklin in 24 years, and better yet, right now with a couple of days left, it's about 40% better than our best month in 24 years, to show you just how much physical demand there is. And look, the movement of real money has been building since 2000. Since it started going up, it's been very, very small. I'd say, when I started in 2002, probably 1% of the world got it. Now it's 2% of the world. Although in some places, you can argue it's a lot higher, not in the United States. And I believe by the time there's no more supply out there, we'll be lucky if we get to 3%. And, I advise everyone to read this wonderful article Jason Hommel wrote this weekend. And my computer is down right now. I can't call the name of it. I think it's called Silver Shortages of April 2013, where he just shows you just how small the amount of physical is out there compared to all the actual paper money that's out there.
Yeah. You see it, I just looking at eBay, used to find $1,000 face value bags all over the place, all over. You had your pick, and there was very little, if any, premium built into it. In fact, sometimes you could actually buy it under spot. There were times when you could buy it under spot, and I challenge you to find one bag of silver on eBay. You can't even find a full bag, Andy. You can't find a full bag of it.
Well, typically this recent surge in demand was in junk silver and 1 ounce rounds, which we're still seeing. But now it's starting to creep up the ladder to the bigger amounts. We had a special at Miles Franklin this past week for 100-ounce silver bars, and we were just sold out. So, again, if these guys want to keep trying to keep the paper price down here with all the incredibly PM bullish news, they're just going to create a firestorm of buying. I mean, we're talking about the United States alone has some of the worst economic data that we've seen since 2008 going on right now. It's had its typical January and February boost in the economic data because the government puts in seasonally adjusted factors to make it look better, even though in Main Street you're certainly not seeing it. But they do that for 2 months, and then people talk about the end of QE, which, recall, they were talking about on April 10th. That was the beginning of this whole smash, was April 10th when the FOMC minutes came out, which was nothing. I mean, heck, since that FOMC meeting on March 20th, we've had massive declines in economic data. So since then, everything has been falling apart, and we're at the time of the year where the data always shows its true colors. So I think when the ECB meets on Thursday, I think they're going to lower interest rates after pretending all was well. And I think when the Fed meets on Wednesday, that they're going to whine again about how they need to do QE indefinitely because the economy's not getting any better.
As if you had any doubts in the first place. Here I'm looking at a $1,000 bag. Well, this guy's a little crazy. He's trying to get 60,000. That's insane. But here's $1,000 on eBay. Face value pre-65, $24,000. So
yeah, that'd be spot plus 8 or 9 probably.
Yeah, exactly. It's $715 dollars the ounce. So if we call that, what does that come out to in real money? Almost, it's in the mid 30s there, pretty much. So just anecdotally, all you got to do is look on eBay and you'll see. Here's another one selling 500 ounces Buffalo rounds, 16,350. So we're $33 right there an ounce. So the price of physical has not gone down, because when the price gets too low, it's just like rent controlled apartments in New York City. When the price is too low, you have a shortage when government fixes prices. And it's so funny, Andy. I had this woman on. She was from this think tank in the Bay Area, which, think tank in the Bay Area for progressives, that's an oxymoron because they don't think. And she was telling me how safe Social Security is, that they've never missed a payment yet. And, she had her panties in a bunch over chain CPI. And I said, what difference does it make? They've been lying about the CPI as long as I've been alive. And the actual purchasing power of a Social Security check has lost a ton since 1964. So what are you worried about? And it's like, well, they just don't want to face reality until reality doesn't leave them a choice.
Well, my favorite, again, the reason that this particular smash is causing so much a reaction, and, look, heck, the price of gold is almost back to where it started, but it's causing such a reaction because they're no longer doing it with cover. In 2008, when they did it, and again, remember, 2008 silver premiums got to almost 100%. But when they did it, there was under cover of the global meltdown, and they said, oh, yeah, it's liquidation. It was just another typical attack, but they had cover. Here, no cover at all. Just couldn't be more blatant. And people are recognize it, just like they recognize that the government just came out last week and said, we are now, as of July, changing the GDP calculation to require royalties and to include royalties. And, so basically we're going to add 3% to the GDP every year, just like we changed the NFP data years back when we started to lose all the jobs to China, and they changed the inflation data back in the 90s when it started to get hot. So at some point, I wrote it after Cyprus. I said the propaganda leg of the stool is broken. So now it's all about money printing and market manipulation, and how far can you take that is the question.
I want to welcome our new sponsor, Audible. I've been listening to audiobooks from them for over 5 years now. I am a huge Audible fan. In fact, I've bought multiple platinum memberships. Platinum membership, you buy 25 audiobooks at a time. I just got done listening to the first 3 or 4 books of the Jack Reacher series, the one you probably saw, or maybe you didn't, in the theater, Tom Cruise movie. Just a wonderful book, wonderful series, expertly narrated, and so many times I'm in the car, I get sick of listening to music or news or the radio. I just put my iPod on, plays the book, and makes that trip go by so quickly. To me, this is one of the great things of the information revolution of the internet, is that you can get over 100,000 books on your iPad or iPod or iPhone instantly. Another thing that they have is courses on Audible, the Modern Scholar series. And I've listened to lectures about World War I, Shakespeare, nanotechnology, detective novels. It's so enlightening. To me, Audible is a must-have killer app for the iPhone, the iPad, for my computer, wherever I am. I'm always downloading these books. Like I say, they're a sponsor, so check them out. They've got a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial membership. Just sign up at www.audiblepodcast.com/Lutz, L-U-T-Z. Again, audiblepodcast.com/Lutz. Sign up today. Like I say, this to me is a dream sponsor. These are exactly the types of things that I like to pass on to you because I'm such a fanatical, over-the-top Audible user. 5-6 years I've been listening, hundreds of books. I used to think I was a well-read person, and it's a little strange when somebody asks you, "Did you read that book?" And you have to say, "Well, yeah, well, somebody actually read it to me, but they actually did a better job than I could have, so I don't mind it." But my friend Sean Perger up in Vancouver, he listens to almost as many as I do, and he can't get enough. I know you're going to love this company, love their service. I do. So check them out. audiblepodcast.com/Lutz. Good question. And they're going to take it as far as they can until there's a complete and total collapse. So, Andy, hypothetical here. Let's say you've got about $20,000. You've managed to avoid having the government confiscate that through various measures. What would you do with it today?
Well, it all depends. I mean,
disposable,
how much other money. Well, if it's disposable, then, if you're asking me, I mean, I have 97% of my liquid net worth in physical metals. In fact, I'd have more, except my wife says we should have some cash, which, by the way, I keep in a Schwab cash account, not in a bank, because I won't put anything in a bank. But really, it's all. I wrote a piece a year or two ago called Protection Continuum. You have to do what makes you feel comfortable. If you think half of your money in precious metals is good, that's fine. If you think 10%, that's fine. If you think all your money should be in Bank of America in checking accounts earning 0.1%, you're welcome to do that too. I know what I've done, and I know what I advise to people, because, again, gold and silver, the Holy Grail, they are not investments. They are real money. So I don't think of it as, well, I'm investing in gold hoping it goes up. I trade my dollars for physical gold and silver because I know it will hold its value against other things.
As it always has, and it always will.
Correct.
We know the purchasing power things with two dimes buying you a gallon of gas in '64, and now it buys you close to two in 2013. We know all that. And if you decided that you needed to diversify, obviously you'd be putting it into precious metals, assuming your paper investments are what they are. Obviously you're able to put food on the table for your family. So then you're really just buying insurance with that $20,000. So you put it into a life insurance policy or a wealth insurance policy.
That's right. I mean, again, no one ever thinks, or until recent years, no one ever thought about the money they had in their bank account as an investment. No one ever said, well, I'm going to put money in the bank, hoping it goes up, or I'm excited about it's going to make interest. You just put it there because you figure it's not going anywhere. If it makes 3% interest, 5% interest, whatever, that's fine. But you put it there because the bank is safe, your money is safe, and it's not going anywhere. The fact is now that, A, we know banks are not safe. B, we know inflation is destroying real purchasing power faster than it ever has. And we also know banks are paying 0% interest, literally. And, of course, per Cyprus, they will now take your money. So why would anyone think that putting your money in the bank is safe versus putting your money in coins that aren't going anywhere, that have maintained their purchasing power over time? And, I mean, there's not a person on earth who's not disingenuous who could tell you that the fundamentals for owning physical gold and silver right now have ever been better in history.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you just have to look around, try to divorce yourself from the noise and the propaganda. Forget about the stock market hitting records. None of that matters. It's the economy's in the pits, the world economy's in the pits. There's a debt crisis of beyond all reason, beyond any measure that you ever thought you'd live to see. And when everything hits the fan, there's not going to be a lot of choices left. Basically, it'll be, hopefully you have some food, you got a means of protecting yourself, and you got a roof over your head, and you've got some physical metal. Because eventually when it all reboots, and maybe they'll do it before the collapse, I'm not overly optimistic, but maybe they will. At some point, they have to reboot the whole system and revalue all paper against gold and silver. I think that's where the Chinese have been going, and I think that's where it's all heading.
Well, someone emailed me today, someone who's very knowledgeable about the sector, but he said, how come you guys aren't promoting a secondary market. Let's say if someone says, "Oh, I'll buy your silver for $40 an ounce," and I said, we've been brokers for 24 years. We and all of our competitors do the same thing. The problem is that no one is selling. People talk about now, it's been 50-1 buys to sell since the smash. It's always 50-1. We've been in business 24 years. 99% of our revenues is buying and 1% is selling. And based on what I see, that selling is almost always because someone needs the money. Like they have a medical emergency to buy in a house, not because they are bearish on metals. The fact is, there is no secondary market because when people buy into this, it's because they believe that it's the only thing that will protect their purchasing power. And the system can only go so long when you're talking about parabolic increases in debt.
Exactly. And that's what we are looking at, boy. Parabolic increases to levels never imagined. And really, that's what you need to be thinking about when you're figuring out what to do with that $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 that you've got sitting around, and put the fear aside and just figure out what's going to happen, your best guess, and what asset class will get through it the best. Because as you say, and as so many others, gold is nobody else's counterparty risk. It's money in your hands, not dependent upon any markets or anything else. And that's what we're going to be back to pretty soon.
And I do encourage everyone to take advantage. Spread the word. Like I said, Sound Money Campaign, their second video is going to be out within hours on YouTube. Keep looking for it. And do participate and do spread the word, because it's not just about making money. It's not just about winning. It's about protecting the world, because the longer this goes on, the worse it's going to be for more people.
That's it. Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. The longer it goes on, the worse it's going to be. I think more of you are waking up, but until everybody is awake, it's just going to go on. And unfortunately, the day when everyone becomes awake and aware is the day when the old system collapses, and then we're faced with, well, now what are you going to do?
Correct.
So on that note, Andy, milesfranklin.com. We will talk to you next week. We knew that it was going to be interesting after the first of the year. We absolutely knew that the course of events, the pace of change, everything that's affecting you was going to quicken and really, really reach a feverish pitch. The question is, will it reach its climax, its eventual climax, before the summer or after? Because if it doesn't hit it before, everything kind of goes on hold for the summer, and then after the summer, September, forget it. It's game over. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to mention to you, Andy.
Sure.
I've been doing a lot of analysis on the so-called Obamacare, and let me tell you something. You talk about chaos. There's going to be doctors, hospitals, people going unpaid. You're going to go to a doctor, you're going to think you have insurance, and you're not. And you're going to be turned away. And this is just going to be the worst thing that you ever have seen, Andy. This thing, they can't implement it because nobody understands it. The genius who came up with it, this guy, what's his name, Max Baucus from Montana, who wrote it with a little help from the White House and Harry Reid, he doesn't know what's in it. And he is not running for re-election, which should tell you something about what he's anticipating. And they say, oh, it's just because the bureaucrats can't get their act together. No, it's because this thing is so complex and nobody can understand it, and it conflicts, and it's such awful policy with awful incentives that it is going to cause a major collapse in healthcare. And I'm not being alarmist here, Andy. I've thought this thing through. There's a 21-page application that has to be approved by 3 different federal agencies. And unless you send them money, you can't get the federal government to do anything. If you're lucky and you send them money, they might do something. This thing is just going to be unfreaking believable. You can't even imagine the pain, the chaos, and the damage that it's going to do.
Well, I've called it the most damaging piece of legislation in American history. And then I wrote a piece afterward. I think it was called SCOTUS Turns USA to Russia or something like that, because, to see the Supreme Court actually validate it with a Republican of all people casting the deciding vote, not to boot, the Chief Justice, who was just appointed a few years ago, just shows you how in bed the whole Washington, Wall Street, corporations fascism has become. And, I personally know doctors, including one very prominent one who is leaving the business after 20-something years on January 1st because of it. And given the demographics, all the immigrants plus the baby boomers, I just think it's going to be an absolutely catastrophic situation just to compound onto everything else.
Well, it's actually going to be worse than you ever thought, because all of the prognostications and the predictions were based upon it being successfully implemented. Now that it becomes obvious that it won't be, and that there's going to be this, as Bacchus called it, a train wreck, it's going to be worse than anyone ever imagined, because it's going to be improperly implemented, and it has the potential to really bring down the entire healthcare sector all in one blow. It's just remarkable in its incompetence. I remember my partner, David, he used to go do workouts for banks, and he'd look at a loan and he would go, I hope somebody got paid for this, because it would really bother me to think that somebody working for this bank could be that stupid to make this loan. And that's what I'm looking at here. It's like, I hope the intent was for it to fail, because I'd hate to think that somebody could write something this stupid.
But the intent was not. The intent was not to make it. The intent is, look, we are turning into a socialist country. It's not. Everyone acts like this is such a big deal. Every Western nation is a socialist country, from Canada to England to France to Germany. You name it, everyone. And then, of course, Russia. China. Who is not? What country in the world is not a socialist country? And I don't mean everyone, but pretty much, I'd say 80% of the population. And the reason particularly is when you've had 40 years of fiat currency falling apart, collapsing, and all you're getting, particularly in the States where we've lost all the industrial jobs to the east, is a need for government help. That's why we have the increase to food stamps, the disability, the entitlements, and why the debt keeps going up, because there's no way to pay it off. And this is just one way of winning votes and at the same time exerting control over a nation that, for the most part, people are welcoming it. And this is what happens. Of course, the next step is going to be, if the system doesn't collapse first, is going to be tax rates, just like in Europe and Canada. Why does anyone believe that we're going to have, let's say, a 33% tax rate when they have socialism in Canada and socialism in Europe, and it's a 50% tax rate? Of course that's going to be next, and the government will misuse all that money too. And whether it's before or after, of course the currency is going to collapse, so it's all moot. But the fact is, we're just moving down the same sad path that we've seen throughout history, and Obamacare is just symbolic of moving officially from a capitalist economy to a command economy.
You couldn't have said it better. And I was thinking, if they want to get people to sign up for Obamacare, they should give them a free Obama phone.
Yeah, well, they probably will.
Why not? Hey, you're paying for it. What the heck? Yeah, when less than 50% of the people are producing and the rest are parasites, nothing good could come of it. So on that note, Andy, we'll talk to you next week, and let's see about this World Silver Day. On May Day, interestingly enough, a communist holiday.
That's right, and the second anniversary of the Sunday Night Silver Price Massacre.
Hey, exactly. All right, you be well, and hopefully get your computer up and running.
Great.
When it comes to buying physical gold and silver, Regal Assets is the place to go. Did you know that you can use your existing retirement plan to invest in precious metals, and it's 100% tax-free with Regal Assets? I hope you're seriously thinking about using precious metals in your retirement plan to help you beat inflation. It's so simple to use your existing IRA or old 401k to set up your precious metals retirement plan. Request your free investment kit today. It's so helpful and informative that it was recently featured in Forbes and Smart Money Wall Street Journal magazines. Get the latest info by calling toll-free 855-678-6620. That's 855-678-6620. Or visit regalassets.com
and use the code LUTZ. You'll save the setup fees and a whole lot more at regalassets.com.